Now, France has been plunged deeper into political crisis with the resignation of the Prime Minister, Smith-Maillet just 3.5 weeks after he was appointed. The announcement came hours after his cabinet was unveiled. Several parties in the French National Assembly had fiercely criticised the makeup of that new cabinet. So let's talk to French journalist Jamie Smith-Maillet, who joins us now from Paris. Jamie, just make sense of this, because there have been so many French prime ministers in the last few months. What is going on, and what steps are being taken to restore some sort of political stability there?
Yeah, relatively tumultuous day in French politics here in Paris and across France, but in many ways feels like the similar sort of colour we've seen of French politics in the last year or so. And here, this latest Prime Minister, I was in Paris at the beginning of the month following the vote of no confidence against François Bayrou, which led to him being ousted out of office, and Sébastien Lecornu swiftly into the position of PM, and only here for, as you said, less than a month, 26 days in total. Now, the latest in the last 24 hours is that last night, after a few weeks of consultation, he announced his new cabinet. But for what opposition parties saw as much of the same as before. In fact, there were 12 ministers who were reappointed to cabinet and seen as a reshuffle. Now, just after announcing that cabinet this morning, we get news of the resignation barely hours after that announcement. Now, Sébastien Lecornu himself saying that the opposition parties had led to this being an impossible feat to go forward. And at the same time, we understand there's been perhaps a little bit of infighting in this new government in any case. Ultimately, what this means today is that France once again is looking at a situation without a PM, without a cabinet, and yes, another period of instability, much like what we've seen in the past year or so.
And Jamie, what does all this mean in the longer term for President Macron, especially with those presidential elections in 2027? I mean, all this instability, this sense of sort of constant crisis in France.
Indeed, there is a sense of sort of cyclical constant crisis in France. So this is coming back once again. Yet again, another fall of another prime minister. Now, ultimately, the decision for Emmanuel Macron, who has said this evening that by Wednesday, Sébastien Lecornu in between has been asked to find some form of solution for stability for the country. Emmanuel Macron has said by Wednesday he would take his responsibilities. And now what that means, we will yet have to see. But ultimately, possibly an appointing of a new prime minister, but stronger voices and calls for either Emmanuel Macron's resignation or for dissolution of the National Assembly, the calling of a snap election here before the presidential elections in 2027. Now, the parliament is still very much divided into three blocks since the last snap elections in June of 2024. And that in some ways has led to this situation of political instability. So there are a number of options there on the table for Emmanuel Macron, but we'll have to wait and see what happens next. Or will it yet be again of another period of instability, another PM who ultimately will be unable to find some form of compromise with that divided parliament.
All right, Jamie, thank you very much indeed. Jamie Smith-Maillet there joining us from Paris. Well,